was a rabbi who wrote that poem. That's a lovely poem.
Very good. Did you get a program?
I did get a program, but I don't want to speak to you.
I know. Mordecai, Ben, we had Tara, that's who I know. Is that undercover?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It was Mordecai Ben Shmuel.
What's Hebrew name? Shmuel?
It was Mordecai Ben.
Oh, great.
That's what was on the Sahara. So they had my Sahara done.
Oh, I see.
And I remember because my father is Shmuel. My father is Seymour.
Oh.
And his nickname was Sai. And another funeral director that was my dad's age, they both passed away the last couple of years, was Izzy Dick. There's two grandsons, Izzy and Sai. And I always have coincidences like that. I called him, he saw her, and his son was like, he got nervous. I worked with him until he was 90. I used to sell candy with him for the Lions on Broadway when I was 8 years old. Every October, first Friday October, with Izzy, Dora, and my dad. And I always outsell all of these people. I'm gonna be great.
Okay. Yeah, do we know where the bridge is?
She's right there.
All right.
Oh, really? They called me in the city. By the way, this is amazing. It's just a tiny building. It makes the sound every camp I've ever had. This I couldn't do it on your internet. I just did it on my phone. I'm on. I'll turn it so you're not getting that. Give us maybe 3 more minutes. Oh, and I want to give you. Did you bring another stand for that?
What's here?
You have another one that'll hold it.
No, I think you guys should mute one. Maybe this one. Yeah. Well, in a minute, you guys should just go feedback.
Are they gonna?
Okay. I don't think so. If you guys want to talk or say anything, you're free to, but it's not.
She probably let us know now.
Yeah. Okay. Are you guys want to say anything or not? No.
When the time is right, my name is Lloyd. I'm the director. When the time is right, we're going to put this up on an easel up in front, and I'll hold the microphone and you. It's a nice thing to do.
Okay. Okay.
Rachel? They're not going to speak, right? Right. They are. Right. Yeah. All right. Are you almost ready?
Yes. We're going to just grab some water.
This is the black. You just need to grab this. I can't just take this back. There's so much black.
That's where I could go.
Also,
Rachel,
Yeah.
I think you should hold it and watch your kids while they're watching the funeral.
Right.
And if they want to speak, which I understand is they don't,
right.
Yeah.
then I can put it up here and I can hold the mic, but if they don't want to speak.
Yeah, that's great.
You should hold it, that way they're with you.
You can hold it, I
The main purpose was for them to be with you.
Right, exactly.
If you're gonna be sitting.
Yeah.
Oh, right. So you can bring them up with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
hold it in your
Oh, I
hands.
see.
That way you,
Do normally come up.
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
make sure the mute's on.
Their view is on.
And so, why don't the two of you sit?
Yeah.
Did I give you your ribbon?
Yeah, it's a long time, so. Hopefully this one isn't permanent, right?
Ashley? Look at the ribbon. Got it.
Hi, guys.
Do you want to wear your coat or do you want to maybe unzip it? Okay. Then let's put the ribbon on here for now. Yeah, I'm just going to tear it. And I have a candle for you and your niece. And you'll light it when you get home. It'll stay lit approximately till next Monday morning. Ashley, just make sure that this is all right when we're. Is there anybody that didn't get a program? Ashley, will you take that? Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask everyone to put your cell phones to silent mode at this time? The funeral service for Melvyn Abrams is going to be conducted by Cantor Michelle Drucker Friedman.
The rite we're about to take part in right now is biblical in nature. When Jacob finds out that he believes his son is dead, Joseph, he rends his clothing. And so these small ribbons are representative of that. Okay, you're in the right, okay, perfect. I don't know my right from my left. If you would please repeat after me before we tear these ribbons. Baruch,
Baruch
Atah,
atah
Adonai,
Adonai
Eloheinu,
Eloheinu
Melech,
melech
Haolam,
haolam
Dayan,
dayan
Amen.
amen.
Beautiful, and at the very bottom, if you would, tear, going up. You got it.
I got it.
Just a little.
So beautiful.
By the way, there's 10 devices signed on with us right now, which means in addition to here, we've probably got 15 to 20 more people joining us.
Just as these ribbons have been torn, so are our hearts. And if we were to knit them back together, they would never look the same. Shiviti Adonai l'nei tami kimini ba'lemot לכן שמח ליבי אל כבודי אף בשרי ישכון לבטח כי לא שול לא תיתן לראות שכן תודיעני אורח חיים אורח חיים סובה שמחות את פניך נמות במינך נצח שיביתי אדוני לנגד Mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. Even in grief, we know that the wonder of human life is too complex, too magnificent, to be memorialized in endless pain. The gifts of spirit of our loved ones gave us cannot be measured away, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time. Even in our darkest hours, their light and their warmth will always be with us, bringing comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time, healing and peace. You who heal the brokenhearted and bind up their wounds, grant comfort and consolation to these mourners as they face their grief. Fill their lives with the acts of kindness and truth, which serve as a general memorial to our dear Mel. The deep bond of love will remain unbroken. And we all say, Amen. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and know to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life is lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. It is a human thing, love, a holy thing. To love what death has touched. Adonai roi lo echsar binota shani partseni al menuhot Nafshi Yishovei Yacheini b'maglet tzedek Leman shemo Leman shemo Gam kilech v'yitzal mavet lo gira raki atai imadi shivtecha umishamtecha chema yinachamuni Aruch lefanai shulchanai tzorai deshanta Hashem roshi Kursi rivaya haktor vechesed yidfuni kol yamei chayei vishavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim Adonai roi lo echsar Adonai roi lo echsar Psalm 23, which I just chanted, is on the inside of your prayer pamphlet. If you would please read it with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. This is a poem by Derek Walcott called Love After Love. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. When I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the street beside you. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and souls touch souls. You can love me most by sharing your goodness and multiplying your acts of kindness. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not your mind. And when you say Kaddish for me, remember what our Torah teaches. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. I'd like to invite forward Rachel for some words of her own.
My father's daughter, so I apologize if this runs long, like many of the things he did. My father was Melvyn, Alan Abrams, because my grandma Dorothy said the name Michael was too common, Melvyn with an I, too generic. Nice job, Grandma Dorothy. You did not raise a generic son. Born in 1942, technically my father was a member of the silent generation. For all those who knew him, in no way was that true. As with much of his life, my father was ahead of his time. Born 4 years before the beginning of the boomer generation, but arguably more one of them in temperament and personality. From early on, he had large, echoing opinions and ambitions. He took to drama as a young boy, landing a voiceover for a Kool-Aid comp thumb players and at Theater on the Lake, and even got a small part in Carmen, the lyric opera. As a teenager, he worked for his parents' pharmacy as a delivery boy, then after an argument with his father, went to work for the competition. But no matter who employed him, he used what he earned to buy theater tickets to performances downtown. So enamored by what he saw, he returned home insisting to see the shows again, hits like Oklahoma and High Button Shoes. This was the beginning of my dad's lifelong love of musicals and plays. He was like his own box office, taking family and friends to new shows, as well as repeating favorites like Les Mis and Phantom in Chicago, all of which he attended in different countries and languages too. Yet without a doubt, I say this with affection and much admiration. My dad's biggest stage was his own life. My father was what you would call an early adopter and tastemaker before those terms existed. He spent his freshman year, his freshman and his junior years in college abroad, and this was when it was a novel concept in higher education. As a largely self-taught chef, he sourced ingredients every day when others in the 80s thought a fancy salad featured romaine. And in his side hustle as a travel agent, he pioneered thematic experiential trips from the gastronomical tour de vin to the Holocaust journey of remembrance, well before this kind of travel was a thing. He also brought Judaism into their home, insisting his parents join Emmanuel, befriend Rabbi Shulman, and embrace the community. Beginning at age 11, he formed a close relationship with the rabbi, who married my parents and my grandma Dorothy to my grandpa Seymour in this chapel. And he also married me and Pierre in Brooklyn. Bond continued with the rabbi until he passed away at age 100. At a young age, my dad wanted to see the world, and so he did. September 18th, 1960, the Atlantic Ocean. Today is exactly 1 week before I left New York, since I left New York, sorry. As far as the ship goes, it can be likened to two things. When the weather is good, it is like a floating hotel. When the weather is rough, it is like a floating hell. Although I must say I haven't had 1 minute to be homesick. I am way too busy being seasick. They say that the week between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is the time when one searches his inner self. Well, I've searched, and I'm still looking for my stomach. He goes on to describe the ship's delicious meals, followed by throwing off a boat, then signs off, well, tonight is Israeli night, so I've got to get ready. I'm going as a cactus. From the moment he boarded the SS Zion from New York to Israel for the Young Judea Year course, he recorded every one of his global adventures. First through letters and photographs, later through slides and faxes and emails. I have hundreds of my father's letters and postcards, most typed on the Smith Corona he toted around, others neatly scripted, but all with numerous misspellings. Success with one C, Scrabble with one B. My dad was admittedly a terrible speller. It's hard to picture now, knowing all of the luxury this fellow sought out in his lifetime. But in Israel, he lived and worked on a kibbutz. February 8th, 1961, kibbutz Beit HaEmek. Dear family, I just finished my first week on kibbutz, which is a little north of Haifa, and I can only say that this will be an excellent experience for me, provided I live through it. Jobs I've had thus far, being in the chicken coop, pruning olive trees, weeding sugar beets, picking fruit, and shoveling blank. Later in his time there, he wrote and directed a musical in English and in Hebrew based on West Side Story, which he titled West Side Galilee Story. I recently came across the programs and script, and it truly embodies all of my father's clever sensibilities. In place of the jets and the sharks, he conceived of the sailors and the sirloins. In his words in a letter home, I left the kibbutz with something for them to remember me by. After that, he spent time on a moshav. I am living with a 2-tractor family, and the work has been harder than I expected. But I do not mind, I am driving the tractor. Can you picture me saying, Dad, can I have the tractor for the evening? I have a big date. Well, last night I went to visit Carrie, some 2 miles away, and I went by tractor. But 9 months abroad was not sufficient for my father. And so beginning in February of his year in Israel, he began to petition his parents for permission and money to travel to Europe for the summer. And of course, his best friend Carrie would come too. Still hungry for the food and languages of other countries, 2 years later he was off to Vienna for junior year, where he discovered the Café Demo, the official supplier of pastries and sweets to the royal court during the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Very befitting. My father treated himself like royalty. Supplied Viennese treats. He rented a room from a woman named Frau Stutz and studied under the psychiatrist, author, and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl, with whom my dad formed a decades-long relationship, and we met years later when they're as a family. Back in the States for law school, my dad did something ordinary. He got a dog, a beagle who he named Sydney. He loved this dog and cooked for it like a restaurant critic, claiming it only delicacies he made. So when he left for an internship in Mexico City for the summer, he passed the pet off to his parents, and they got stuck with a canine who, like their son, had become a food snob. Not long after, my father began to spread his love of travel. He didn't just book trips for us three, but for his parents, Linda, he was a big brother in so many wonderful and torturous ways too. Friends and friends of friends. So when he learned he could earn perks for the business he brought to hotels and airlines, his business, Travelux Limited, was born. Yet there was nothing limited about my dad's itineraries. The man rarely planned anything for under 3 weeks. Growing up, I returned from school vacation days late, including summer. So even at 7, stuffed between bags in the back of our new white Cadillac, I could calculate that when you take a 10-week road trip to 29 US states and Canada, then spontaneously add a week-long cruise to Alaska, you won't make it back in time for the first day of 3rd grade. Another time, my dad dropped me off in Israel for a summer program by way of the French Riviera. Your father's in every picture, my mother used to say. And just a few weeks ago, when I told him how much I wanted to travel to Israel as a family, he said, "I'm free the last 2 weeks of the month." Your dad showed me the world, our dear friend Barbara says. And I never told him it. Because how many times my dad would, you'd think it was his first time there. He views it fresh through the eyes of his companions. Wherever he went, my father developed friendships. He taught me that friendship can form anywhere, that no circumstance need be ruled out as a launchpad for kinship. He even applied this principle to his therapists. And while I judged their lack of professional boundaries, I felt validated. My father is impossible to say no to. Relatives, colleagues, even nations have struggled and lost. I've seen my dad intimidate KGB agents in Russia, have words with border guards in Jordan, and inadequately pay banditos. Once when my parents arrived late to the Staatsoper in Vienna to be told they wouldn't be seated until Act 2, my father exclaimed, They were in their seats 2 minutes later. I realize this sounds like just the kind of hyperbolic story my dad would tell, but I know it's the truth because my mother told the story, and that one couldn't lie. In my mother, my father found someone who didn't take him too seriously. Together they hosted elaborate dinner parties, dressed up as Henry Higgins and Eliza Doolittle, studied together, teased one another, and shopped duty-free. They had a kick out of each other for a long while, until they didn't. Now, as much as my dad loved to get away, he was deeply committed to the domestic, transforming our modest brick house into a hotel. He installed a fountain in our small yard, carved a second kitchen out of a laundry room, fashioned an espresso bar from an off-season closet, that hired a muralist to paint my mom and me in a gondola. But when I began ballet at age 6, he put in parquet flooring and mounted a ballet bar on our basement wall, which he then had mirrored. I've danced and had ever since, from my childhood home to our Harlem apartment to our Brooklyn bedroom. Thank you, Pierre. My dad was the one who insisted I attend Jewish day school while in Schechter, and for that decision alone, I am deeply grateful. He spent more at this synagogue study group, then in the afternoon, Jewish stories and articles on current events to residents at the women's home. There he began with a woman named Silka and her husband David. He included them on Jewish holidays at our house from then on, even insisting I stop by, all dressed up, to say hi on the night of prom. He is as strong-willed and opinionated as my dad was. He was a man who could, on certain occasions, come around. When after my childhood of rack of lamb, filet mignon, and beef bourguignon, all prepared by him, I became a vegetarian, and he reserved a table at Charlie Trotter's for the vegetable tasting menu for my high school graduation. To so many people, us included, my father was over the top. But he also embodied a drive to make both his own and others' dreams come true. Always, he gave his time, money, and perspective. Jen did the same. At one point, our family coined the term "milk" with an exclamation point. He loved when that caught on and people exclaimed it when they needed him. Someone who valued correspondence as much as my father did, he insisted I set up email accounts for his grandsons before they were even born. He then asked that I read the two of you his letters, which I intended to, but sometimes forgot. You boys know I run late, and I have ones beginning May 10th, 2010, when Sai, you were minus 7 months old. But here's one from July 29th, 2011, when you were an actual 7 months old. Dearest Simon, some grandpa I turned out to be. I wrote to you more often before you were born. Well, that will now change, and we will become pen pals and crayon buddies. So I hear you are chomping your meals and getting the better part of each one in you rather than on you. I cannot wait to prepare some yummy treats for you. One day when you are older, you may be interested in learning to cook. Your dad impresses me more each time I taste a wonderful meal that he prepares. Quick side note. As a lifelong Europhile, my dad was delighted when I married a man who had Belgian heritage. That was just... We can talk to each other about anything that interests you, like things you are doing that make us happy or sad. Our conversations will be privileged, which means whatever you tell me, I will never repeat. You will see that having someone to talk to without judgment or a set mind will be satisfying. Everyone needs this. You will have it in abundance from all who know and love you. Have a good Shabbos. Love, your Papa Mel. And to Izzy, April 7th, 2015. Dear Izzy, I have thought of little else for the past few days than your birthday. I hope to talk with you first thing in the morning to start your day with love and best wishes for a long life, good health, accomplishment, and much joy. Joy is something that you have given as a gift to all those who've loved you since the day you were born. Always know that I adore and love you more than any words can express. In time to come, I know that this will be something you will sense based on the times we are together, the things that we will do and the experiences that will be shared. How very blessed I am to be your grandfather. I will count the days. It will not be long, I promise. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful birthday, and a wonderful life that awaits you. My heart is filled with love for Izzy, Papa Mel. Boys, see me for more of these letters. For all of the experiences that my father shared with others, I was pleased when one day he said to me, you know, Rachel, you introduced me to dance. I love it because of you. It felt nice that there was something I could show him after all he showed me, the know-it-all that he often was. My dad was my first editor. Throughout elementary and high school, to such an extent, often adding in words I didn't know. When I told him so, he simply defined a word, then said, there, now you know it. And as temperamentally different as I was from my father, there are things we share. I inherited his taste in classical music, his love of musicals and fine hotels, his flair for plating food, his optimism and effervescence, Pierre would say persistence, his hopeful yet unrealistic sense that life can feel infinite, and that even in his 80s, he had just completed Acts 1 and 2. 3 and 4 were yet to come. I did not, however, inherit his ability to keep a kitchen immaculate while I cooked, his decisiveness, his perennial choice to drive versus walk, his penchant for filling every surface with gadgets and expensive knickknacks, his unapologetic way of demanding what he wanted from the world, his bad spelling, and his terrific wink. He said to me once that before he set out to see the world, he was so one week for a Jewish youth event. Instead of driving back, he brought a ticket from Mitchell to O'Hare. And in that 20th flight, he conquered his fear. 50 years later, he challenged his fear of flying again, jumping off a mountain in the Swiss Alps. Strapped to a pilot, he floated above the valleys and villages, impeccably dressed as always, his red shoes matching the underside of the red glider. The mind is funny because more recently, when he became somewhat disoriented, he would ask about his parents and other things that were no longer with us. I could bring him back by asking him about a recipe or some kind of cooking technique. I could say, can you give me your best way for making lemon curd? And he would just perk up, and with clarity and precision, he was back in the kitchen, articulate and present. The boys and I were with my dad 1 week ago today, and despite his lethargy, there was an energy in the room. He didn't have to speak or nod or even open his eyes much to give Cy and Izzy that unique thing that only a grandparent can: sugar cereal. And guys, I know Papa Mel would want you to have not just his iPad, the Y in his name, one for each of you, but what's left of his frosted flakes. I'll bring them home. So, I wholeheartedly have to extend my gratitude to all the people who put up with my father, who loved him and were by his side, despite his, at times, many times, being truly impossible. His parents, my mother, friends, hoteliers, that poor man at the Jordanian border, the entire staff at Lincolnwood Place, Evanston, Shirlette, and her mom, Rosita, for these past 2 years. Ian and Erilyn, who brought my dad to Cy's bar mitzvah. And Kim, who was with him every night for these past 4 months. And no doubt, the most devoted of all, his beloved sister, and my cherished Aunt Linda. But I like to think that he didn't just aggravate and agitate lives, he shaped them. And that's what I choose to remember. Of course, I will let my father have the last word. October 29th, 1960, Jerusalem. Dear family, the sun is a golden radish color. Sorry, Dad, actually, that was my edit. You wrote reddish, but I misread it and then thought radish worked. As it dips behind the Judean hills on this late Friday afternoon. The streets have settled down from all the daily activity, and each little shop in turn closes its doors, and the shopkeeper, whether he be a little bearded Jew whose dress is similar to that of his ancestors centuries ago, or if he be a large, bold, sun-bronzed Israeli of today, goes home to spend Shabbat with both family and friends. You quickly walk down the street with a brisk and exhilarated pace as if you were about to meet someone very special. And indeed you are. You have an appointment with none less than Queen of Days, the Sabbath. As the sun for the last time goes behind the earthen and rock-covered hills, and as evening gently sweeps in, you are greeted with Her Majesty's radiance and warmth. For one precious moment, all time becomes irrelevant. You need not be Mel Abrams, who is living in an age of constant motion. Time seems to stand still, and you are linked with all ages. Whether it be for just one given moment, you somehow hold all that is yours, and you feel peace.
Rachel, I'm sure it was not lost on many of us that after years of your father being your editor, you ended the sermon with being his. And that's just how it should be. But you will bring the stories of his life in the world with a different color and flavor, perhaps a little bit more, perhaps a little bit more panache. You'll decide what flavor you add to those beautiful stories. Thank you for sharing those words with all of us. He has achieved much, who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has enjoyed the trust of others, the respect of the intelligent, and the love of little children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who has left the world better than he found it, whether by an improved copy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who has never lacked the appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who has always looked for the best in others and given them the best he had, whose life was an inspiration, whose memory a benediction. Those words are based on the work of Bessie Stanley. And finally, this poem by Rabbi Louis John Aaron. In the late afternoon, sitting quietly with a cup of tea and a cookie. Or Wednesday, same time or later, you will stir from a nap and see him. You will pick up the phone to call him. You will hear his voice, unexpected advice, and maybe argue, and you will not be frightened, and you will not be sad, and you will not be alone, not alone at all, and your tears will warm you. But not today, and not tomorrow, and not tomorrow's tomorrow, but someday, some Tuesday, sitting quietly with a cup of tea and a cookie, and you will be yourself again. Please join me for one last poem by Rabbi Alvin Fine, found in the inside of your handout. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that the victory lies not at some high place, a long way, but having made the journey, stage by stage, a pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. I'll invite you to rise for the El Malay Rachamim. שוכם במרמים, המסעים נוכל נחמה, תחת כנפיך השינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר רקיע מזהירים, נשמעת מרדכי בן שמואל, לדור שלח לעולם ברחמים יסירהו בשיא כנפיו לעולמים ויתרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום, בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר inside again. Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Melvyn Allen Abrams, Mordechai, Ben Shmuel Dorothy, who has entered eternity. O God, in refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God, you are his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. You may be seated. To Rachel, Pierre, to Linda, to Izzy, to Sai, to all of you who are friends of Mel, may you go in peace.
One of the clients that I didn't know and I kind of wish I had, I definitely wish I had, he sounded like an amazing man, Maverick, which is, so the family's going to have interment at Rose Hill Cemetery. We're going to have a little funeral procession that will form in the parking. If you wanted to go on your own, you can meet us at the gate at 5800 Ravenswood. But otherwise, you could follow in what's called the Levaya, the deceased to their final resting place. And if you choose to do that, we're going to put either a flag and or a sticker in your window that will go on your car unless you don't have metal in your car. And we're going to drive with our high beam headlights on, flashers on, and although the hearse might go and the light may change, you can go through the red light, but don't do it unless you've looked both ways and are sure the traffic is stopped. If I see that the procession gets cut off, I will pull over until you can catch up. Please drive very defensively. That's going to conclude the service here at Emmanuel Congregation. What a beautiful day with the sun and everything, and the fact that your parents were married here. Wow. Anyways, thank you all for coming, and the live stream will continue once we arrive at the cemetery at approximately 2:30 is when we're supposed to start.